PLD PJ Campbell. 2 mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are 2 mediocre white dudes on film.
You know, I really like that intro now, just in the sense that, like, I actually hear it before we go live, because now we're on camera in 3D.
You can see us.
3 dimensions.
Crap.
Actually, no, there's no 3 dimensions to this, probably, actually, is there?
No, not that I know.
This was like listening at home, because that's what they're used to. I was like putting my hand into the camera like it was a 3D movie. Because, you know, we have to get ready for 3D, because 3D is coming back again after the first time in like 12 years because of James Cameron in December. So I have to pretend I give a shit about 3D again.
You never gave a shit about 3D, did you?
No, I still don't. Not unless I'm in a theme park.
I mean, I saw 3D when I saw Jaws in 3D when that came out.
I saw Jaws in 3D too, but not on purpose. I went to see Jaws. It just happened to be in 3D because there were screenings of Jaws that were not in 3D. I did not realize I chose a 3D option. And I remember because I went with my parents and they handed us the glasses. My dad was like, "This movie didn't used to be in 3D." And I was like, it's not my fault.
What's funny about that is you thought I meant the original Jaws. I'm saying back in the day, I saw Jaws 3. Which came out in 3D. That's how old I am.
I knew what you meant, but I wanted to be smarter than you for half a second. Then you had to step all over the things that I was saying.
Well, I remember being very excited about that.
Man.
Yeah, I am. That's my role. I play it well.
You are a mediocre white man, so
somebody's got to smack you down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, one mediocre white dude smacking down another one. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's true.
We really lean on that mediocre white dude thing, and yet every time I bring it up to people, they just laugh and think it's really cute and adorable. And I'm like, I'm not sure if that's good or not. Like,
I gotta be honest with you. Every time I mention somebody, people look at me and go, "That's a great name." I'm like,
right?
I know it is.
That's why we came up with it.
That's right.
While we were live on air.
Yes,
when I joked about it and said we should just call it 2 mediocre white dudes on film, because I don't know if anyone knows, when we recorded that first episode, we had no name. We just recorded an episode of podcasting.
Yeah, I know you figured out.
Podcasting the movie.
That's what podcasting the movie. Not in 3D.
Not in 3D. In standard 2D 480p definition.
Something to that effect.
You know, like on the old RCA TVs.
Yeah, because you don't want this in HD. It's just not. It's not very pretty.
This is so weird. I actually have to give a shit that we're on camera for once. Like, it's throwing me off. And for our audio listeners, they're sitting there going, "No one cares. Just talk about the shit." But if anyone knows anything about us, they know we're going to ramble for the next 20 minutes anyway. So this shouldn't be surprising.
So welcome to
first-time watchers on YouTube. Hello, welcome. You're in for a nightmare.
Yes, you are. I will say, this is actually, I should get this out of the way. You mentioned it. We're seeing it on YouTube. This is on the PLD Project YouTube channel for the first time.
It's almost like I was setting you up for the segue.
It was. And out of the park. That's where we're going to go.
Yeah. I had to make sure I mentioned that I set you up for it, though, so I felt like I actually contributed.
You always feel, I always make you feel like you contributed, don't I?
That's true. For the most part.
You'll be getting a State of the State video from PLD Projects because I decided to change things up. I've been doing a lot of things weirdly. I don't know why. I don't know why I do them the way I did, but I did. So now we have 2 mediocre white dudes, Crown Jewels, and Class Action will be seen on YouTube. And all of the above will also be seen on Spotify, which means Class Action is coming to Spotify and all your favorite podcast areas. See, this is the kind of talk, this PJ stuff here. This is what you've been missing from the visual of 2 mediocre white dudes. Him mocking me by throwing his hands in the air like he just don't care.
Well, I'm a mediocre white man, and we're really good at that part.
We are. But we want to cross over every which way. That's what I decided. I want to get as many people listening, or because you want to watch us be crazy on there, because we are adorable and we are crazy on air. So we might as well let you in on the visuals of this very.
You just really know that people like physical media, and you're like, if we put us on screen, 2 extra people will tune in just so they can get a look at the collection behind it.
That's true. That is actually very true. And we are mediocre and white, so we actually get ratings that way. That's what it
is. And we made it to YouTube, and now we're canceled.
Yeah, we will be canceled. That's I know, we got 5 minutes.
I mean, look, it was bound to happen.
Absolutely. We got 5 minutes. I'm okay with it. We're good.
Look, I'll take it. 5 minutes in, and that's how long it took. New record, probably.
It's kind of weird. The one OCD thing about this for me is the fact that like we're doing this now for the last episode in the Halloween franchise. Like, so instead of like waiting and doing a Halloween episode like we used to do, and then it's when we start a new franchise after like a week off or something like
You got to
that,
bug up your ass to just do it now.
I just want to do it and get it done. Partially because like, let's just fucking do it, you know. But I will say the one thing we had this talk off air. I think the original plan, if you didn't know it, I actually said this last week. The original plan was on Thursday, we were going to watch the movie and then we were going to go, like, not go live, but record it that night, get it out as soon as possible with our first thoughts. Well, sometimes things happen. PJ had life happening.
I was working.
He was working. That's right. And so that's why you saw me go live right away, just with first thoughts, not too in depth. But I'm actually very glad that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
Too.
Because after we sat with it for a bit, after we watched it a bit, I think we're going to be a little less hostile than we were that first. Because if we went live that night or we recorded that night, there's going to be nothing left of this movie. It might have rated below Resurrection the way we were talking about it at one point. I've softened a little bit.
I've softened a lot.
I've got a second viewing in last night, and that definitely helped me out. We had a couple of conversations. We let ourselves down some paths, and we're not in the same place that we were before. So this is going to be a very interesting talk, and I'm very interested to see where we end where we end up at the end of it. Because quite frankly, when I have this conversation with you on air, my thoughts can change. And I'm not, by the end of the episode, I might not even be where I am by the beginning of the episode. So I want to start making the journey.
I'm really glad that we waited because, number one, like, initial reactions are great, but to like sit and think about it is a really good thing. And we're going to talk a lot about it. I even said it, like, my initial tweet was like, I watched the movie and I was perplexed. Like, that was my exact wording, was I am perplexed. And I have not stopped being perplexed since I thought about it. And I was going to watch it a second time before we recorded. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to watch Midnight Mass instead. Not Midnight Club. This is not a mistake like PLD thought I was making earlier. No, I have this habit for some reason for waiting about a year from every Flanagan TV drop. And then I binge it in a day. And then I like come out of the woodwork and I go, hey, I finally watched the thing. And then I like disappear again.
And for some reason, I think one of your best friends, I didn't realize this because like when you said that, I literally did think it was Midnight Club. I'm like, how have you not seen Midnight Mass yet? You're a Flanophile, like I am. I love Flanagan. And yet you hadn't seen this. But
it's almost because as much as I love certain people in our lives and some of our friends, some of them, like, as much as I love Flanagan, they'd be like, you need to watch this. And I was like, I will do no such thing if you keep forcing this on me. And so, then I dig my heels in and then I wait about a year. I think part of it, though, it worked out for me when it came to Hill House because I didn't actually see Hill House until it hit Blu-ray. And Hill House had like 3 or 4 of the episodes as extended director's cuts. So the first time I watched Hill House was the extended version of the show, which, yes, I know it's a TV show and it's already long, but a couple of the episodes are a little bit longer than they were on Netflix. So I saw it in the way that Mike Flanagan intended for me to see it, on extended Blu-ray at home. Bly Manor did not have that sort of addition to it, so I just watched it on Netflix a year after the fact because it was in 4K. But look, I love Mike Flanagan. And it was funny because I had just recently rewatched Hush, and I'm just reminded the dude is like a goat, and now all I want him to do is a Halloween movie.
Ooh, I would love that too. I would absolutely love that. I'm actually going to use this opportunity to plug something on PLD projects. I would love to see
finally talking about Dr. Sleep.
No, actually, by the way, my class action Dr. Sleep was our first episode.
Yeah, I know that. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, are we finally fucking covering it here? Because if you give me a chance, I will talk about Dr. Sleep for 3 hours.
Well, that could be a short franchise we do. We could do Shining and Dr. Sleep. That could be definitely.
Look, I'll fucking do it. Sign me the fuck up.
I bet you I could talk to Danny and talk to her about that. That would be her selection because Danielle, our patron and our good friend, my work wife.
For yourself. I'm not gonna. She's left you basically on red and not giving you information. I'm not gonna say good friend right now.
She left me on red. We left the conversation. That she was going to think about it. She just hasn't gotten back to me yet. I'm not. She's my work wife. I love her. She's good.
You know what? You can say all that all you want. I am not tied down to any work wife status in this, so I can just throw shots and go. Danielle is holding us up for figuring out what we're going to do next, and that's not good because you and I are working men, and we have to get out there and do the stuff that we need to do, and I need to be able to plan. I need to know what I need to be watching.
Well, quite frankly, we did a Doctor Sleep and we did a Shining Doctor Sleep. We could just do 2 weeks and then be back to her anyway, so we could actually end up doing that. So we can temporarily say that.
Whose show did you and I hijack? Where I started doing a review of Doctor Sleep like on the fly. Was that was that Kiwi Jess's about the writing?
That might have been
for the showdown.
That might have been it. I
think she like wandered off because she had something going on,
and we just started talking Doctor Sleep. And Danielle wasn't Danielle on that one?
No. What happened was some people. Now I remember some people in the chat started like looking at my shelves, and they would be like 5th shelf, like 14th movie over,
right?
And like they'd choose the shelf number, choose the shelf, like the actual shelf, then the row, and then the movie over. And that was what it was. Because I think we ended up with Dr. Sleep and Muppets Most Wanted. Or the Muppets. I don't remember which.
I can't remember either, but I do. I'm trying to remember what you're talking about now, though.
Yes. So anyway, I got to give a heartfelt diatribe about why I love Dr. Sleep so much and why it's a masterpiece.
And Dr. Sleep is probably one of my favorite films of the decade as well, so that might happen. So maybe that will happen. That was not what I was plugging. I was plugging the fact that on Class Action this week on a special day on Thursday, because I'm having a medical thing done on Tuesday, so I can't do Wednesday. So we're gonna do Thursday instead, since there's no Two Mediocre right things coming out on Thursday because it's coming out right now. We are doing.
Are we live right now? Like, can you two watch us right now?
No, that's not happening.
Oh, thank God.
Not live. We're not doing it live because the chat would be like wild. We get distracted by the chat, and we can't have that. We are distracting each other enough.
That's
to be honest,
for real.
So, but we're doing Mike Flanagan versus James Wan on Class Action. I can't wait to have that discussion because those are two of my favorite horror directors going at it right now. So
I hate you guys for deciding that's a thing because usually I like to tune in and like listen to you guys talk about this stuff, but this is this is me having to. One, I have to fight you guys, but number two, now you're forcing me to pick a favorite child. Wow, I need to not talk so fast where I'm blending words together. I do not feel like picking a favorite child. And that this stream is making me have to do, and I refuse to do it.
Well, you don't have to, luckily. You don't have to. You just watch us and let us do it, and we'll see it happens, right? But either way, I would like to see Mike Flanagan do a Halloween movie as well. And for that matter, I would mind seeing James Wan do a Halloween film as well. So let's just,
honestly, the two of them could do anything, and I would watch it.
That's very true.
In what is it in Tommy Boy when he's like, look, if you want me to guarantee it, I'll go shit in a box, put guaranteed, slap it in, you hand it to you. That's the same thing. They could they could shit in a box, put their names on it, and hand it to me, and I'd go, cool, I'll watch it.
Absolutely. 110%. I love both of them as well. They're so good. So good.
Man, okay, I had a thought, by the way, and I needed to run this by you, and this kind of has something to do with what we're talking about. But I've been reading interviews with David Gordon Green, because obviously we're talking about Halloween Ends, and he's directed the last 3 movies in this franchise. He's the only director to have done 3 of these movies, by the way. So, new record for this universe, if you will. This franchise.
And that means actually he beats out Rick Rosenthal. So I'm actually
glad. Rob Zombie.
And Rob Zombie as well. Okay, I don't know. I was going to say, because David Gordon Green, whether you like his movie trilogy or not, is definitely better than Rick Rosenthal's contributions to the saga.
Yeah.
Minds.
Well, I mean, that's for fucking sure. All the disrespect to Halloween Resurrection in that comment.
Yes.
And only minor disrespect to Halloween 2 in that. Halloween 2, 1981, by the way, not Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which is pretty close to a masterpiece. So I digress. Yeah. Wow, that for the people just tuning in who have never watched our show before and they heard me say that out loud, we just had 7 people rage quit because I said what I said.
And here's the thing, I'm going to double down on it. I double down on Halloween Zone. I also think it is a masterpiece, and actually has some play in this trilogy as well. Actually, I think David Gordon Green actually likes some of zombie stuff as well, because some of the stuff kind of feels like it might have been a little nod to it here and there.
So you're not wrong. Number one, I agree with you. Number two, so I was reading this interview on Collider. I'm gonna go ahead and shout out Collider and Perry Nimroff, friend of the show, friend of us. Perry Nimroff is great. But in the thumbnail for the video interview, I can't help but notice that David Gordon Green looks like a Walmart branded version of Edward Norton from Fight Club.
Wow. Yeah, you know what? You're not wrong. I can see that. I can see that.
Right?
Yeah, I can see that. I didn't think about it, but I can see that.
I don't know why I am fascinated by this, but now I can't unsee it. And now I kind of wish that Edward Norton was in these movies.
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool.
Although I'm very excited that he is in Glass Onion.
Yes.
A Benoit Blanc mystery, not a Knives Out mystery. Netflix, get your head out of your ass.
Oh, we're gonna get on. If we get on that again, we could rant for another half an hour.
I mean, don't tempt me, because it is clearly a Benoit Blanc mystery.
I need to get my whiskey out. We're gonna start doing that.
But I'm very, very. I don't know why. I was looking at his picture and I was like, why does he look like Edward Norton? I have no basis for any of that being a thing other than I saw it and then I had to share it with you.
Absolutely. I get that. I totally get that. Because we have weird thoughts and sometimes we just got to get them out. That's just how we are.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And speaking of weird thoughts. If you have, for some reason, decided to rank the Halloween franchise, and then you decide that you need to share that ranking with the world, and you might be a person who doesn't normally talk to us, and then you decide to add us in a conversation of your tweet about the Halloween franchise, and then it's a really, really frustratingly bad ranking, and then you get mouthy with us because we get mouthy with you, just know that you brought that on yourself, and I'm not going to feel bad about the things that I say to you in those moments when you put a list that is so egregious that Halloween Resurrection is not the last thing on the list.
Not only not the last thing, but halfway up.
Yeah. In a world where I'm not going to point fingers, but New Zealand, you're on fucking watch right now.
On notice. You are notice.
You're on notice. Because all of New Zealand, because of one person, is on notice. And really, I really like the New Zealand people. I do. I apologize to the rest of New Zealand. We have a very good friend in New Zealand. Her name is Jess. We like her very much. Jess is a great person. However, the rest of you are all on notice. Contain yourselves. Don't start putting your stuff out on the internet thinking that we want to see your rankings. The only people whose rankings I want to see are mine and Paul's, because it matters to the show. Otherwise, I'm just going to make fun of your rankings because your rankings aren't the same as ours. And do you really want that? Do you really want me to make fun of your rankings? No, I don't think you do. So how about you don't tag me in your random Twitter rankings on a Halloween franchise when you know how much this franchise means to me? And now I feel like I have to fight someone.
I will say you can tag me all you want because I just laugh at it myself. I actually say Adam Witt came and responded and said something to the effect of that he's surprised at how much difference this franchise is.
Oh yeah, that was a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and I love that. It's so true because I've never seen a franchise that has so many different rankings in the world.
I don't like that you're taking anyone else's side but mine in this. You just threw me under the bus and made me look like such an asshole.
No, you're just a little grumpier about it than I am. That's okay. You're a grumpy, mediocre white dude about it, and I get that.
Only sometimes.
About this particular situation.
Yes,
situation, and that's what I mean. And that's okay. You're allowed to be a grumpy, mediocre white dude sometimes. I can be a grumpy, mediocre white dude sometimes. At this point, though, I've kind of gone past. I was grumpy a little bit at first. I've kind of gone past the grumpiness into the bring the chaos. I'm just let's see what everybody's got at this point, because I don't know what people are thinking left and right. And
don't get me wrong. Do I want to see them? Yes, just so I can mock you mercilessly. That's why I want to, because there is objectively only one way to rank these movies.
Well, I will say, I will say definitively, objectively, if the OG Halloween 1978 is not your number one, then I will have a difficult time.
Exactly. That's my point. If the first movie is not the number one on your list, You know what? I don't know if I even want to talk to you. I don't know if I even want to like use my little time on Earth and the very little breath that I already have in this world to talk to you.
Do you guys know how positive PJ generally is in a lifetime, like on a daily basis? Look what you guys have done to him. Look at what you guys have done to this poor child.
Yeah, I normally am. I'm normally very positive.
You usually love love a film and love a difference of opinion and stuff. You have been driven insanely mad, and I mean I understand. I understand.
Do you know
I feel
why?
bad for you. Why is that?
Because evil can take any shape or form,
It can,
which is what I learned from Halloween Ends.
and it doesn't. In fact, die tonight.
Evil did,
Unlike
in
us.
fact, not die tonight. In fact, evil so badly didn't die that it waited another 4 years to reemerge itself.
And it could have been 40, but we'll get there. We'll get there, of course. Let's start this whole damn thing out. Halloween Ends, the finale of David Gordon Green's trilogy.
You mean the first film in the trilogy? Wait.
We are going to get there. We are going to definitely get there.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
If that intrigues you, know that it's not a real thing, but it should be. It definitively should be.
I have thoughts.
I'm not sure if we're going to talk about that in the middle or wait till the end. I don't know what's going on. I think we should talk about first what happened.
I think here's the funny thing. I don't know what to think, and I don't know how to talk about this movie in the way that I normally talk about movies.
Yeah.
Because I am still 3 days out from this movie, and I am still just perplexed.
Yes.
But I have decided one thing, and I will not reveal what that one thing is until the end of this episode. But I'll say this. I have seen a lot of conversation happening around this movie about people's expectations for the film. I've seen people talking about why they think people aren't enjoying this film because they only wanted it to be Michael versus Laurie or all these things. And ultimately, I don't think that's the issue. I think that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride and all the people who wrote this movie, Paul Brad Logan, Chris Bernier, they swung super hard.
That's for sure.
And I think the problem comes down to, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how hard you swing. The problem is that the marketing of this movie marketed 5 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
No more, no less.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of this movie is a David Gordon Green movie.
Right.
And that's fine. And I was having these conversations earlier in the afternoon on the internet where people are totally normal and not at all creating weird straw man arguments about this stuff, about how people shouldn't judge movies from their marketing, et cetera, et cetera. And that's right. You shouldn't judge a movie by its marketing. And we generally don't after the first couple of months. The problem is that when you're in this first 72-hour window, the first week, the first month, the people who are watching this movie are the ones who had been watching the marketing, and they were sold a bill of goods. If they do not feel like those bill of goods were the thing that they were sold, they have every right to be frustrated or pissed off or what have you. It doesn't mean that it's fair to the movie. It's not. But then you have to take that up with the studio and its marketing department. And I think that what we're seeing a lot of with Halloween Ends is a mismarketed campaign as a trilogy closer when it's really not quite that.
Right. And I would say, honestly, I want to throw this out there. It's not just the marketing. It's kind of how the trilogy had been setting up.
Yes.
Like it was set up
story-wise.
Story-wise, you kind of thought this was coming. So, and I'm not saying it's okay to be mad at if you think it's going to go away and it tricks you and goes another. But when you get that plus the marketing that basically sells that, it's definitely something to be frustrated about. And you really hit the nail on the head about the whole 72 hours versus like a couple months from now. Not even a couple months from now. I think just even getting a second viewing in after that, because you just reset your expectations and you know what you're getting into this time. And you can kind of see the film for what it is without worrying about what the marketing sets you up for. Because you're setting yourself up now. Okay, let's see how this is without the hype of the markup of the marketing. And hype of everything else. Let's just see how this film delivers without all that. And that's why I think it does get a little better on a second viewing. It's not that much better to me. It's not it's not like it also becomes like one of my favorite Halloween films, but I see more of what they're going for, and I just wish they connected a little harder.
The only reason, by the way, I think you're right. Number one, in a lot of things, what you're saying. The reason I was talking about like the 72-hour window is that more I'm thinking that eventually there are going to be people who discover this movie who are not involved in the hyperbole and like the build up to this, right? It's actually a conversation we could have about the things happening right now with Hugh Jackman coming back as Logan in Deadpool 3. A lot of people are like, but they sold that movie as his last movie, and that was like the whole build for it, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. For a small generation of people who saw that movie in theaters, that is how they sold it. But once you're outside of that, there are kids who are probably just discovering that X-Men franchise right now, who are just realizing that Hugh Jackman is a perfect Wolverine, who have no idea that Logan was sold that way, who are going to be super fucking excited when they see him pop up in the trailer for Deadpool 3, right?
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I'm talking about, is that we are a microcosm of the internet. We are like the 1%ers of the internet who spend our times probably too much, some would say, living online.
Oh, yeah.
And we get caught up in all these conversations and all these, like, the way that people interact with media, the way that people interact with directors and actors and characters and franchises and all these things. These people love all this stuff all the time. And they all interact with it in a weird way. And we all probably live on the internet, like I said, to probably an unhealthy degree. There are going to be people who take a step back who are not like us.
Yeah.
And don't see what we all saw going into this, and they're just going to discover these movies over time. It's why movies like Blade Runner found an audience over time. It doesn't matter what the critics said. It doesn't matter that it bombed at the box office. The right audience found the movie over time, and time is generally kinder to movies like that. Or if the movie's really not good, time is much worse.
Harsher, yeah.
And
we talked about earlier, you talked about when we said Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie was one of our favorite films from the franchise, and you said a lot of people turned off. There's actually, I've been finding more and more a not so insignificant size of fans that are actually with us now.
Yeah.
I'm finding more and more people are actually rediscovering Halloween 2 and really vibing with it and saying it's actually a really good film now, which is far from it. I remember when it first came out, like it was trashed by everyone I know, including myself to a degree.
And including Zombie to a degree, because he didn't like the theatrical cut of that movie.
That's true.
He has had no nice words about how Halloween 2 went down over at that studio that shall not be named. Well, it's still Miramax, I guess, at the time, or
Dimension.
Technically Dimension. I don't know. Regardless, the two Troll brothers ran that company. Yes. But that's what's going to make this conversation interesting, which is going to make going back to this movie very interesting over time. Because the truth of the matter is that I think David Gordon Green and Danny McBride set out to make Halloween 2, and Halloween 3. And they did it their way. And I'm not talking like doing their own 1, 2, and 3. I mean, they're taking the bones of Halloween 1, the Rick Rosenthal directed Halloween 2, and Halloween 3, and they created their own bones around their own trilogy in their own timeline. And they were like, this is our love letter to the franchise that also loves everything else that's like weird and random, including Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie, including the Thorn trilogy stuff. They took all the movies and tried to create a love letter over 3 films, and it works to a point. Halloween Ends, unfortunately, the problem is that this movie was built up a certain way and doesn't quite go the way that it is built to go or is sold.
I will say, like, I think you're absolutely right. And what kills me about it is I feel like a lot of these problems, I mean, I don't know this for sure. I've never heard anybody say it. It's just a gut instinct of mine, is that they were too smart for their own good. And they did Halloween 1. Obviously, I mean, even for the title card and the font they use, Halloween 2018, same as Halloween. Halloween Kills is the same font of Halloween 2. That was cool here. Like the Halloween Ends fonts and everything else was from exactly the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, what's the big deal about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch? It's the first movie that does not have Michael in it at all. That was the biggest thing to come out of that movie. Was it was a Michael Myers less film. I almost feel like the writers here and Diego Green and Danny McBride and whoever else thought to themselves, well, we should do that too. We have this thing. That's the in joke. We'll have a Michael less film almost. And that's how the starting point was. And they built from there. But that's way, I mean, I get the joke and it's kind of like, it's kind of funny in a way. But it ends up tanking the movie for that reason, I think. And I'm not saying I needed a movie that was all Michael, but like it just it harmed it that Michael was not involved. You took the main character out, and Michael doesn't really matter overall to the story, which really hurts it, especially given what you were building towards. If you're building towards a Laurie Michael finale, to take Michael out of it until then is just I know I almost would have thought it better if they just didn't have Michael in it the entire time.
Well, and there's a conversation to be had about that. And I guess I'll just bring it up now because we're here. We're already at this point, and this is the springboard for the rest of the conversation on the movie. But the truth of the matter is this movie might have been better had it not had Michael, or this movie would have been better if this was the first film in the franchise, in the rebooted trilogy.
I agree with that. I want to throw out one idea I had to talk about. So I had some conversations after the film was done. And one of the things, a conversation I had, which I never actually talked to you about, is that, or if I did, it was very briefly. It almost would have been a bigger swing, but perhaps more successful if, like, if Michael was a figment of Corey's imagination. Like he wasn't real the entire time.
You did bring this up to me.
I did bring it up. And I think that would have made the whole thing a little bit better. You could have had Michael in it still, and it's in the vision sense, but it makes the story flow better. But either way, that was one way it could have worked. But when we started talking, you talked about this being the first film in the franchise. That's when I also went away and went, this is exactly what should have happened. And you're absolutely right, because they had it set in place. We talked about this. We had it set in place. This film decides to retcon Halloween, everything after the OG Halloween 78 film. You're handed on a silver platter what happened. Because in Halloween Kills, they had to actually create footage from 1978 and did it well.
Don't get me wrong. It's some of the most thrilling footage in the movie. We talked about that. Like, I love the footage in that movie.
Bringing Loomis back and the whole thing to show how, well, after Michael ran away from the house, they picked up Michael a couple of houses later on down the line and then got Michael into the asylum or whatever. But in this case, you could end with Halloween. Michael's escaped. Well, you could have Michael on the lam for 40 years.
And to your point, even if you could have left the footage in from that scene in Kills, and Michael gets away, because the whole point is that Patton doesn't kill him, right?
Right.
Will Patton's character stops Loomis from killing him.
Right.
So there's still something to be said that you can keep a lot of it intact. But the truth of the matter is that this movie picks up in a weird place for me. They do this time jump that's 4 years after the fact. And it's weird and awkward because the time jump for the characters and Haddonfield in this feels closer to what I feel like I would have assumed where Halloween 2018 starts Laurie's descent into madness versus where 2018 starts, because I talked about this on the podcast when we talked about Halloween 2018. I don't buy into Laurie and her traumatized nature being so heavy that she doesn't even like evolve and live. And there's a world, and there's a world where you can take some of the ideas in H2O where maybe she's got her issues, but she's still managing to be like a parent. So there's still the friction between her and Judy Greer's character, Karen, and you build that. And then when you have the Corey character introduced, and here's the thing, you can market the movie as Corey's movie.
Right.
Corey can still be the lead, and it's not a problem, because you know what you're doing? You're pulling a Psycho where you kill him off.
Yes.
And that starts to spur Laurie into her crazed nature, which leads to the ultimate ending, which is 2018, where she and Michael get in a battle again.
And that's exactly what I'm saying too, because you got to look at Laurie from this trilogy, and that was one of my major problems with the beginning of this movie. Kind of way you had Laurie, who is has gone crazy for the most part, losing her kids, or losing her daughter rather. She's holed up in this like trap of a house, and she's not functioning at all. And if you're gonna do that, fine. But by the time ends comes, she's Susie Homemaker, and like
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but at the end of Halloween, and the way you set it up that Holly Michael was caught. So Michael caught and locked away with no hope of parole and no inkling that he's going to escape anytime soon because you have no idea about this. It's not like the movies happen where he's escaping every couple of years. He's never escaped. That drives you to create the Hell House trap house, losing your kids, yada, yada, yada. But then when he does actually break out, attack you, ends up killing your daughter, and then gets away, all of a sudden 4 years later, your daughter's dead, Michael's on the run, and you're like, I'm baking pies now for Allison. Like,
it's a weird fucking choice, dude, because I don't buy it.
Right. You move that to the beginning of this trilogy and you say that over 40 years, she's dealt with her issues and she can be Susie Homemaker to a degree. You can still have her, be a little eccentric, be a little off here or there, but she's doing the thing. And then the attack happens. And by the time you build to where she is in 2018, I mean, you could have this whole movie, the end of this movie, if Michael gets away, we'll talk about how that happens. But she would then go to the next one and start building the trap house. And her whole second part of the trilogy could be building the trap house, getting ready for what the final battle is. And then the final battle happens in the 2018 version where she finally gets out. And let's be honest with you, as much as I did enjoy the Michael Laurie confrontation during this one, it was a bigger battle in 2018. And that would have been a more satisfying conclusion.
Which is why if you have it at the end of this one, it's totally fine, right?
Right.
Like it's their first confrontation in 40 years.
Right. It's like a warm-up fight between them.
Right. And also in that same headspace, now I get time between her and Will Patton's character and you can like build this idea that maybe she potentially could have had a relationship and like that you plant those seeds. There's a lot of different ways this could have gone. And the thing is this is not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just not a good finale because it's clearly backwards to me. And it's going to feel that way probably for the longest time because I really kind of feel like this trilogy is told backwards.
It's not even a great Halloween movie, completely honestly, but it would be a better Halloween movie if it was first. And you brought up Will Patton. I will say one of the things I'm going to try to interspice a little bit of actually reviewing this movie for what it is because we're going to lose a little bit.
We're going to have to, yeah.
But I will throw that was when you brought up Will Patton. How do you criminally underutilize Will Patton? You have Will Patton and you barely use him in this movie, and he's right there for the taking. You set up this romance angle in Halloween Kills, and if you want to try to pull, let's say they're going to try to pull off this. I'm going to be Susie Homemaker for Allison. I'm going to get my shit together and become whatever. If you're going to try to pull it off, wouldn't the best way to do that have had Hawkins and her get together over the course of the couple of years, and that he helped her through that and is living with her now, kind of thing, and they're living with Allison? Like, wouldn't that have actually been a little bit more? Would you buy into it just a little bit more? Mm-hmm. But instead, you give him this like moment of like where he sees her a couple of times. They have like this. They have the same type of interactions that they had in the hospital with Halloween Kills again during Halloween Ends a couple of times until the very end. When he like seems like they might be getting together to hang at the end, it just didn't make any sense to me. Like you're first of all, you have an actor like Patton, you're going to underutilize him, and there's actually ways you could have used him to make it a better story.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. Again, that's why like I don't think it's a bad movie. The ideas are great. The problem is the placement just seems weird. Yes. And that's why I want to get into the Corey of it all, because Corey's going to be the biggest conversation, I think, of most of this movie surrounding it.
Yeah.
Corey is a great character whose introduction makes a ton of sense. The problem is that, again, this is the last movie. If you wanted Corey to be a part of this, he should have at least been introduced in the second one in some capacity. It would have been better if he had been introduced from the beginning.
Right.
Because I actually love what they're doing. They're clearly homaging Halloween 4. Yes. And Jamie and Michael's connection and this idea that evil can personify itself onto another person and use their memories and figure things out. I love all that. And I think Corey's actually a great character. And this idea that evil takes a new form is great.
Yeah.
And I love that there's this whole conversation between Laurie and the dad of the kid who Corey accidentally kills.
Jeremy, yeah.
And here's the thing. The movie opens, we should talk about this real quick. The
Yeah.
movie opens and it's this monologue, or not this monologue, this whole sequence revolving around Corey, and it's a throwback to 78.
Yeah.
Where it's Halloween night, the parents are going out, and Corey's going to watch this kid, and the kid's kind of being a little bastard. Kind of, no, he's fucking awful. And so,
by the way, Michael doesn't kill kids. Obviously, Jeremy didn't watch 2018 and our dancing kid, but just throwing that out there.
The same thing. Like, I was thinking, I thought when I was watching it, I was like, he straight up murders a child in 2018.
Yeah. Obviously, Jeremy missed that. He doesn't watch this.
Jeremy missed that part. So this Jeremy Brat is being an asshole, and that's the nicest way I can say it. He's just being a brat. Yeah. And so Corey's like, you're going to go to bed, and the kid starts to fuck around, and he starts pretending that he's disappeared, and he locks Corey upstairs in what looks like an attic of some sort.
Yeah, I got a story.
And Corey's trying to get out, and he's pleading with the kid to let him out because he doesn't want his parents to get mad at him, and he doesn't want Jeremy to get in trouble, and he doesn't want to get in trouble. And of course, the parents pull up right at the right time for Corey to say out loud to the world, "I'm going to kill you." And they hear it as he says it, and he kicks the door, and the door kicks open, and a child falls 3 stories down and dies.
Whew. That's quite a the beginning. Yeah. It was actually a very well shot opening. I was actually kind of in. Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cinematography was not part of the weakness, I didn't think. And also, I'll throw it out here right now, the score was also
the score is fire.
Unshocking.
So
the John Carpenter family.
No, not even a little bit. But so my point is with all this is that like the setup for Corey is great. And I like this idea that we're setting up a new babysitter. I like that it's a guy. We hadn't seen that in the franchise as far as babysitters were really concerned. Like that was kind of a new twist on it. And I like this idea that in a world where 78 has happened, that the Haddonfield starting to turn on other people who they start to think could be murderers is an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be explored more in Kills. It's almost like it's, again, total little bit out of order. But I really, really do like the Corey character. And that's a shout out to Rowan Campbell. The dude is good.
He is good. Imagine if this was the first film. So there hasn't been any issues with Michael for 40 years. Haddonfield has not seen, like, I'm assuming, we're going to assume that the storyline, nothing really horrible has happened to Haddonfield over the past 40 years. But instead we get, so this is the first time something like this happens, and the town kind of turns on. Maybe it's because shit has gone down before, that they are a little bit irked or whatever. And that's how it starts out, where Corey has to fight this whole trauma of everything else, like, because they don't have anybody else to blame it on either. This is all Corey. And that's what pushes Corey to become an outcast and end up, we'll talk about that part later. But the one thing I want to also mention about Corey, to think about it, is I feel like David Gordon Green did a disservice to this film also, because it seems like he didn't want to just make a Halloween movie. He wanted to make another John Carpenter movie. Because I think Corey Cunningham is named Cunningham for an easy reason. He really has the Arnie Cunningham arc. He's a good, nerdy kid at first, and he goes bad across the way because of a spirit, like a spiritual connection kind of thing. It's almost like they're calling Jason Christine, or Jason Michael Christine.
To be honest, this movie is nothing but other John Carpenter homages, like throughout in big capacity.
And in a way, I would kind of like that to a degree, but it just became too stuffed, especially for a finale. We don't have a time to do a big Christine vibe throughout when we're trying to finish the story.
Right, which is again why this movie feels so fucking weirdly placed. And it's again not necessarily a problem with the movie, because the movie itself is good. The problem is that you can't place this as a trilogy cap. This is bringing Palpatine into Rise of Skywalker with no explanation.
Pretty much. That's pretty much
it. Look, I like Rise of Skywalker more than most people.
I do too.
But I'd be lying if the Palpatine stuff doesn't come out of nowhere so much that you're kind of like, wait, what?
What?
That's kind of what the Corey situation in this movie is. Because we now spend the next hour of this movie almost only with Corey.
Right.
And that's a weird fucking choice for your
Yeah.
trilogy ender that has Will Patton, Andy Matichak, and Jamie Lee Curtis, who
Right.
are in the other two movies.
Right. And Andy Matichak is also very underused. I will say that Jamie Lee is used quite a bit and a good amount, but it shouldn't be. She is still overshown by the development of Corey, and it doesn't work. Doesn't work for that. I want to throw out there. First of all, great title sequence, by the way. I love this title sequence,
and I love that it's Halloween 3.
Yes, I love that. I love the merging things and everything else. So we get past the beginning part, and the first next thing is Laurie's writing this memoir over, and you get this music going on. And you get actual footage from the last 3 films. It's not like they're not creating anything like They Didn't Kill. This is actual footage from the other movies, which is fine. Then we get some more footage too. She's trying to write this thing. By the way, I noticed this on the second time. They get a sequence where you see how stuff has happened to the town, yada yada yada. You see Hawkins in his role as sheriff. You see him talking about, Michael doesn't use guns or whatever, and Michael sees and Hawkins sees the hanging body. Do you know who that was?
Yeah, it's Oscar's mom.
Oscar's mom. I didn't realize it the first time I saw it, and I realized that this one. That's a great throwback. I think that's a smart, cool throwback. So I did like that. But they try to introduce a lot of little things. They also introduced Willie the Kid during this with the Haddonfield Rock Station, which
is, by the way, a throwback to another John Carpenter film.
Yes, it very much so is. The Fog, which again, but it also seems like they're trying to stuff it in. I mean, Willie was not needed in this film.
No, really that whole sequence is unnecessary ultimately, other than the fact that for whatever reason, Corey liked to go and sit on top of the radio station.
It felt like a lot of times throughout this movie, they had to introduce characters so that when the time came, Corey would have a checklist of people to kill.
That is 100% accurate.
It's like, I don't need that. I don't need that. It's just, and that wastes time. I mean, we have enough already. I mean, they have the rich kids obviously meet him, and the rich kids are typical horror rich kids who are going to beat down on the outcast. But it's already set up in a weird place where you have to spend so much time with Corey that it just detriments from anything else in the film. This movie's only an hour and 50 minutes or something like that. And like, if you're going to have an hour and 50 minutes and this much time, I felt this whole thing was going very slow. That was one of my biggest criticisms as I'm watching it. It wasn't even necessarily that Corey was taking up so much time. It just felt slow. I'm like, I don't really care about this Corey character too much. I want to see more about what's going on with Laurie, what's going on with Andy, what's with Allison rather, and Hawkins, and these are the characters I know and love about, and at least or Michael at that point. Give me an update on where Michael is. We got nothing from that in the beginning. Towards the beginning,
yeah. And this movie is definitely meticulously paced. It's very deliberate in what it's doing. It feels much more like a indie drama in that capacity, which is not shocking. David Gordon Green came from that. That's what he was known for. And there's nothing wrong with that. No. The problem is once again, its placement within this is really suspect, because your small indie character drama is not the opening act of a 3rd film trilogy capper that has been sold as the final confrontation between Laurie and Michael. Right. Like, it's a weird fucking choice. And this is partially to blame the studio for marketing it that way, but it's also kind of on the films for leading that projection of story and then swerving in such a capacity that it goes a different direction, because that it doesn't really fit. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And that's, again, the point of, like, Corey probably should have been introduced in at least the second movie.
Right.
But honestly, he should have been in this since the first one. He should have been one of the kids that she was hanging out with at the dance.
Yes. Something like that, at least. And I mean, every time we start talking about this, we've said it a couple of times already now. Corey should be introduced earlier. And that always leads to the fact that, again, this should have been the first movie. And not only that, because Corey could have lived and died in this movie, had an extreme strong. I almost feel like we would have given this the time to introduce Corey also, if this was the first movie. Because the first movie, we kind of are dipping our toes back in anyway. And it would make we're seeing Michael for the first time in almost 12 years at that point. We haven't seen Michael since Halloween 2. or yeah, Halloween 2 or so. So
Yeah.
at least like close to 10 years at least at that point. We're seeing Michael for the first time in his new trilogy, and we are getting teased it. That's where we get Corey for a while first. Then when Michael does come out at the end, that's the big deal. I think people still would maybe have a problem with that. There's probably some people have a problem with it. Once the whole trilogy came out, it would make sense the story going forward.
I agree, and that's continually going to be the problem we keep running into, no matter how we talk about this movie, is that everything was there. Like, they had it all.
Yeah.
It was theirs for the taking, and it just doesn't. I would love to see someone try to take the 3 of these and edit it in the way we're talking.
That'd be awesome.
And see
if
if
Halloween Kills could actually make it pretty much the same. The only thing, I mean, if I had the choice without editing it, I would have said Michael gets away. Like we talked about a little bit how this would end probably similarly, except for there would no big conversation between Michael and Laurie, but a smaller one. Michael would have grabbed the mask and escaped, and Laurie would have been freaked out. And then the second one would have been like, that's when Tommy Doyle comes in. Like Tommy hears that Laurie got attacked again. Tommy can still raise up the town in the same kind of way and want to hunt Michael down.
Yeah,
because of what he's back after 40 years. This is his time to get revenge now. So he's going to take the town, and maybe they go try to hunt down. But that's the second movie a little bit. They try to hunt down Michael the entire time. Don't have to have the hospital sequence at all. Maybe that's where maybe Jamie Lee or Laurie decides they're going to do that. Well, I go build the trap house. That's what makes her decide to build the trap house.
Or maybe she gets hurt at the end of 28, or at the end of this one, and she still ends up in the hospital. You can still keep that aspect in.
That's true.
I mean,
that way, yeah.
There's plenty of ways it could have gone.
Yeah,
and I think that unfortunately, like a lot of our conversation, as we've already started clearly talking about, is going to continue to come back to this moments of, wow, it could have gone this way and things probably would have been stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have liked that build, because I think also if you introduce Corey and he's the lead of the movie, but Laurie happens to be in it and she happens to meet him in a similar capacity, like he's already been made fun of, and she's trying to set him up with Allison, and then things play out similarly, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then that's when she starts to get nervous because she starts to see that the eyes are wrong or what have you. There's all this build that you could have done in a first film that starts that weird break for her mentally.
And I gotta say, going back to actually what we got, that whole Laurie Corey thing was weird from the get-go, because Laurie saves him kind of from the rich kids and takes him under her wing, and they stab the tires, whatever. I think it's like a lot of times the problem I have with this movie is I think I get what it's trying to do, but it's not, because it's not clear in how it's trying to do it, that it makes it be like, well, is that really what's happening, or am I just nuts? I don't know. And specifically in this case, I think the Laurie saving Corey at the drugstore or the gas station or whatever is supposed to establish this pre-stare Corey versus post-stare Corey, because Laurie's all in on him at this point. Laurie's all in on him, and then also later on she's all out of him after just seeing like the one time when they kind of like recreate the 78 shot of Laurie looking out the window and seeing Michael, or in this case seeing Corey. And it's explained kind of not well. I don't feel like it's explained that well, because it just seems to happen. It does. I mean, I know the explanation is that obviously she starts seeing his eyes going dark and everything else, but I just don't think it was well done. They tried to do something establishing, and they did the same thing happened with Alice and Corey. I feel like they try to establish the relationship. Like, I don't know. Do you know? Did Allison know him before? Because it seems like she almost did, but then there's some times where it seems like she didn't know him at all, and that like it was the Florence Nightingale effect, and
it was clearly the Florence Nightingale effect.
And she saw the trauma in him and kind of recognized the trauma in him, and she's had trauma, so trauma comes together, I guess. But there's a lot of that. That's what I mean. There's a lot of that, like, it's not well shown. It's kind of like thrown out there, and you're supposed to go, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, and you can pick pieces up. But then when you pick pieces up, it means you're not telling the story you want to tell. You're leaving it too much in the hands of the audience, and it's harder to follow in a way.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I felt like the movie gave us enough, especially after the bar sequence where stuff starts to go sideways, and like Corey and Allison have a conversation about where he's like, you can't fix me. I'm not your project. That's not how this stuff works.
Right.
Like, so it's very clear that even he thinks that Allison is only talking to him because she sees her own trauma in him.
Right.
But if you take out, if this is the first movie, then you don't have to worry about that. And then he's just the weird kid that she met, and it's a Florence Nightingale thing, and she feels for him. I like that way more than it being, well, he's traumatized and I'm traumatized, so I want to fix him. Like, that seems weird.
Yeah, because it makes them into this like Bonnie and Clyde situation. That's what makes it,
Which is a nod to, obviously, what did she dress as?
As Bonnie and Clyde. Yes, exactly. I saw that. Yeah, that made sense to me too. I saw that, and it is like, I think maybe they did know what they're doing in some aspects as far as like what they were trying to do. It just wasn't working as well for me. Agreed. I just don't. I didn't. They're an interesting pairing, but I just didn't truly feel like it worked well. It worked better than some people said, but at the end of the day, I agree that if it was done earlier, you could see that develop a little bit better.
Yeah. And look, again, and I'm going to say this a lot, I really like the movie as a whole, and I like the things it's doing. I like the swings it's taking. I like Corey. I think he's a good character. I think the relationship with Allison is actually very smart because it starts to build trust in the Strode family until Laurie starts to deteriorate a little bit. Now, there's also pieces of the original ending of this movie in why Laurie starts to deteriorate. Thank God they got rid of that.
Yeah.
But the idea that evil can take a shape anywhere in anyone, and this leads back to almost 20 minutes ago at this point, leading this back around to Corey having a conversation with the father of Jeremy, the kid that he accidentally murdered.
Yeah.
And this idea that even he has this conversation with Laurie where he goes, I saw Corey walking down the street and I pulled up next to him to talk to him. And when I looked out the window and I started to talk to this kid, I looked at his eyes and I saw his eyes, and those were not the eyes of the boy who I knew. The boy who would he would cut my grass and he would do all these things. He goes, that was not Corey.
Right.
And the smartest thing in this trilogy in doing that, it kind of goes back to 78. And this idea of the blackest eyes, the darkest eyes, this idea that evil could overtake someone in some capacity. And the thing that I liked in this is, we kind of hinted at it earlier, is this is a little bit of a Halloween 4 thing. Yeah. Michael kind of puts his eyes and his being into Corey in some capacity.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I mean, let's talk about that we had the time where obviously after the kids throw Corey off the bridge or whatever, Corey is grabbed by Michael and brought into the sewers. And I guess it's something he does, according to the crazy homeless guy out there. It's something
who says he's Michael Myers, by the way, which is such a weird fucking...
Yeah. It was a weird thing overall. Like, who's in there. Michael Myers in there.
I got real I Am Spartacus vibes from that moment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that could be what they're trying to do. I don't know. We had the sequence where Michael and Corey meet, and obviously Michael is very weakened at this point. It's kind of an interesting take. I'm actually kind of happy to see that, like, the beatdown he got in Kills had real effect on him. He was an older man at this point anyway, and he got beaten down, so he's not quite all strong there. But he's probably gonna kill Corey at this point when they have this look in each other's eyes, and they share this moment, and they see the flashback of everything. And it definitely is I'm leading this toward a supernatural thing. I'm gonna give. I recognize someone who has the evil. I kind of took it as, I recognize somebody who, like me, has that evil in him. It just hasn't awoken yet. And on Corey's side, seeing that kind of was the trigger to awaken the evil inside of him. I liked that. I was okay with that because that's Halloween has always kind of leaned a little supernatural, without going too far. Like, this isn't like a Freddy magic kind of thing. This isn't like a undead Jason thing. It's always been kind of more subtle, even if it's definitely there, kind of thing with that. And that's what worked out for me. I liked that because then Michael could get his strength back while he's seeing his evil the mantle being taken on by somebody else potentially.
Yeah. Here's why I like it. To your point, Halloween really is kind of leaned off the supernatural until some of the later installments, but this is, again, kind of a love letter to those. And I liked this idea that versus it being a familial connection, I like that Michael found the weird outcast kid, because to a point, Michael should see himself as the weird outcast in a lot of ways too. And so this idea that he would find the outcast and kind of imprint himself on him was interesting to me. And like the evil kind of trying to find the way to say it, but
Mhm.
evil transcending itself.
Right.
And Michael being weak in that moment, but knowing that if he can imprint some of the evil or like put some of himself onto this kid and then have this kid used as like a proxy and creating like a copycat killer, that's fucking fascinating.
Yeah.
And I like that because it actually opens the possibilities to do lots of cool shit with the franchise too. And you know what's funny is that's also a little Friday the 13th Jason Goes to Hell.
I was actually about to bring that up at one point. You got me to it. I did feel a little bit of Jason Goes to Hell, which is not necessarily a good thing because that's not a great movie in the franchise, to be honest with you. But
The idea though.
the idea is kind of cool. Idea is
It
definitely kind
is.
of cool.
And again, it's also a little Christine, right?
Yep, absolutely. It's like
And this is clearly like a Carpenter love letter in a lot of ways, as we've been talking about. So
Right.
I really love the idea. And again, I thought that the kid, Rohan Campbell, who plays Corey, he seemed up for the task. He's
Yeah.
super good. I like his interactions with Michael in the movie. The stuff in the sewer is actually very fucking fun and kind of creepy and weird and different. And I love this idea that Michael, in his hiding, was down here just kind of biding his time. Like coming off of kills or 78, depending on how you want to look at how we've been talking about this.
Right.
But that he's been weakened because the one thing that Kills set out to say was that like he's supernatural to a point, right?
Right.
That the evil and the fear of the town that he causes gives him strength. The pain he causes gives him strength.
Right.
Hurting people gives him strength. Well, he hasn't had that in a long time.
Right.
He's just been chilling out in the fucking
Sewers.
underground dark sewer area like Danny DeVito in Batman Returns, living underneath the zoo. And he's not doing a lot, so he's weakened. He's tired. And
He's
I'm
living
cool
on
with
rats. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally fucking cool with that. It
Same.
works, and it's
Same.
great. I just wish that this was something that had been introduced earlier in the series, not in the finale, and that is a
Right.
thing that I'm going to keep saying.
Because if that's what they're introducing, and that's why it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess, I said it. I guess the way they're trying to sell it is that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, because they're
Yes, they
trying
are.
to sell that Halloween Kills, the beating affected him to the point where he's weakened, and yet he's getting stronger along with each kill. Like you said, every time he kills, he does get stronger. That makes a lot of sense because when you see him in 2018, he's hasn't killed for a while, and he's pretty strong from the get go on that. There's no issue at that point there, and he hasn't had a lot of time to cause a whole lot of fear in people.
It's
So
almost the exact opposite.
yeah, it's like it feels like so I don't get what they're going. What are you going for? Are you going for that? He's weak because he hasn't killed in a while, or is it the beatdowns? Then why is he getting a bit more stronger when he goes? It doesn't really
It
make a lot of
once
sense.
again
to me.
also begs the question, which was something I asked you when we were doing the initial podcast on 2018. It almost seems like it was set out to be like the moment the mask is pulled out, everyone starts to panic around him, remember?
Right,
At the asylum. And I was like, well, what if their big thing is it's going to be the mask? Well, it wasn't that.
right. No,
Like,
it's.
so was Michael just deadlifting this whole time he was in the penitentiarium? Like,
I guess so.
penitentiary, not penitentiarium, penitentiary.
All right.
Anyway, my point is that I said this last week in our podcast talking about Halloween Ends.
Right.
The trilogy never fully embraces any singular idea, and I think that this movie encapsulates that almost to a T. The biggest problem is that as a trilogy, as fun as it is to watch, and they've got a lot right, it never commits fully to any of its themes or any of its ideas in a way that is fully satisfying.
It
There's
feels like it
a
goes
lot,
against him sometimes. He actually
right,
literally goes against some of the things it's trying to set out to do.
right.
But
And it's like I like the ideas, but if you're not committing to it and you're leaving it up to the audience imagination, because we both follow a dude on Twitter named Viewer Anon.
Yep.
and he did like a little tweet watch along thing today,
Right.
this afternoon, and he was talking about the scene in the movie where Corey goes to Allison and he's taken the mask already, and Michael's like standing outside watching, and he was like, look, now he knows where Laurie is. Now he knows how to get to Laurie. And I was like, but the point of these movies that they set out to say was that Laurie and Michael was not like the end all be all of it. Like that now you're setting up somehow that matters. And one of the viewers could look at it and go, well, now he knows that Laurie's there, so he has to go after Laurie. But that goes against everything you set out to say in 2018 in Kills, which is Michael didn't give a shit about Laurie.
Yes.
And he was just, which is why I assume he was really just there for the mask. But you know what I'm saying? Like, these movies are not saying enough to give the audience like a full look at it. So instead, it's leaving it open to audience interpretation. And that's not an okay thing when you're trying to mess with these mythologies. You got to stick to what you got to stick to. Like,
make a choice.
Make a choice. Because at the end of the day, that was the biggest problem with like a lot of these sequels. We've talked about it. We've done a whole fucking series about this. No one wanted to fully commit until Zombie did what he did. Look how well he committed to what he did. People may not like it, but he fucking committed to it.
Yeah. There's a lot of vagueness in this one that's not okay, especially for the end. Like, I don't mind a little vagary here and there, like a little vagueness, like, 'cause sometimes it's kind of cool, but like it's when it's overdone like this and every choice seems to be like a vague, like, well, you might have done this. It might be this way. It just gets frustrating. It's just as it goes on. Then you have to make that decision yourself. And it's like, if you make a decision one way for one of your marks, and the next time a mark like that comes up, you have to make it fit your previous decision, or else you have to go back and rethink that decision on how you think something's going, and it becomes tiring. Like, I just want to watch the movie. Like, tell me your story. I don't want to. I'm not in charge here. Tell me your story. Let me. If you want me to be in charge, I will be, and I'll do something completely different. But otherwise, tell me what you want to tell me, and then I can decide whether I like it or not.
Totally. And here again, right? It's not even a bad movie.
Right.
It's not. It's just frustrating that it's leaving these things out in the open. But at the same time, I can't get over the fact that this is a movie that was really made, which is kind of fucking cool. Because this movie takes big swings in a big horror franchise as its finale from a filmmaker who is pretty good.
Yeah.
I just wish that it was committing to its ideas, or that it didn't feel so weirdly plastered together as a trilogy capper when it's clearly not.
Right. It's the worst time to make this kind of your biggest swings. I shouldn't say that, because sometimes your biggest swings should be in your finale, but your biggest swings these kind of swings that he's taking are not the ones to take during a finale. These kind of swings are perfect for a beginning. Perfect place for beginning.
And to that point, this is kind of that we have this conversation a lot when it comes to like Star Wars sequel trilogy. We're gonna have it again here. Well, God, I fucking hope we don't have to do it with his Exorcist trilogy that's coming. But it doesn't feel like this stuff was as planned out as was heavily hinted at in the beginning.
Right.
Like, they've always said that they came into Halloween with the idea that it would be a trilogy of some sort. But that's clearly not necessarily the case, because they were originally supposed to pitch 2 and 3 back to back to shoot them back to back. Then they didn't do that.
Right.
And at one point, all 3 of the movies were supposed to take place over the single night.
Right.
That didn't happen.
Right.
They kept making changes and kept changing shit. And because of that, the movies feel a little off kilter. And like, I can't get over Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie having this like weird housemaking mom mode thing happening when she spent 40 years trying to prepare for a guy who was already incarcerated.
Right.
And her daughter was still alive. That's a weird fucking choice to be like, well, she's actually fine now.
Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, I absolutely fully 100% agree with you on that.
Oh, I know. And I'm more just like going through the motions of being like talking it through.
Right. I get it.
And it's just one of those things. So I really like so many of the angles. Also, did you notice that the doctor character in this is the doctor character that the couple is talking about in Kills
I
when
did,
they're at the
yeah.
bar?
I
So
did
he
say that,
really is
yeah.
as dirtbaggy as we thought he was.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, Interesting twist there. I wish Allison had more to do in this movie, other
I
than
do also.
being a weird, like, semi damsel in distress, but also not. I don't know. It's a weird choice with her character.
I feel like they really undercut her character a lot. They basically turned her from a strong character into this, like, all she was a tool for Corey's development.
And then
Like,
she's like willing to get in on this world where Corey wants to burn down Haddonfield and shit.
I mean, and like they try to go, they do the whole doctor thing, and that's where the whole doctor, and her name was Deb, and she's passed over for the promotion, and people look at her and look at Lori and call her out on things, and like, but it's just not done well enough to the point where I feel like Lori, if Allison wanted to like leave town, I guess that's fine, but the whole burning it down thing, it just felt wrong from her character at that point, and of course, I also didn't like. Again, it's another character created for just to die, which I guess I don't know if I should be mad about that or not, because a lot of horror movies have characters that are created just to die. But like the Doug trope, the former boyfriend thing, it just seems so out of place. It just didn't work for me at all. But I guess it does work when you get Michael killing him. I don't know. I'm kind of ranting on that one a little. Maybe that just might be me being whatever. But I agree with you that I just think Allison could have been a much stronger character, and she had moments that were strong.
Which is again why this feels out of place.
Yeah,
This feels like Allison that I would have met in 2018,
yeah,
not Allison that we're meeting in Ends.
100%, 100%. Just throwing this out of left field, by the way, Lindsay. Um, why is she even in this movie? I mean, I know why she is because she's obviously the same character as in Halloween, and she was in 20 and in Halloween Kills, and she's a strong retro or what's the word I'm looking for, a franchise returning actress, and that's all great. But she couldn't really commit to doing a lot, so she's basically there just to be the bartender, and it just seems like a glorified cameo, and it seems like it's a waste of her.
Which would be great in the first film of a series, establishing that that she as a character, Lindsay, is okay and has moved on, and look at the things she's doing with her life. Then you set up in Kills that she starts to retroactively have fears because of what's happened with Michael.
And helps the kids out there. That's a good ending for her and everything else. Now it just seems kind of just strange. And it actually was annoying. And my brother, I saw this with my brother, and he pointed out afterwards, and I didn't even notice it at first, that they recreate the Smudge the Cat meme. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea. What is
okay, you know that meme where it has it's from Housewives, where the blonde woman is like yelling and the cat's at the table.
Oh, yes,
I
know that meme. Yes,
that's Lindsay. That because she's on the Housewives. That's like that's her in the meme. That's that actress is in the meme doing that. So they basically recreate that in this movie with Corey's mom when Jeremy's mom is yelling at Corey at the bar. Lindsay comes out from the bar and starts holding her back, just like the goddamn meme. And
wait a second.
It's so fucking annoying.
Oh my god, that is her. I'm looking this up.
I didn't notice it the first time through. My brother pointed it out. I watched the second time, and like it stuck out like a sore throat. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! What a it's such a stupid thing to reference. And I guess it didn't.
That's like part of the course for shit like this, right? Like they love doing stuff like that.
I was like, I mean, I guess I can't complain about it too much because I didn't even notice it the first time. So obviously it's not that bad. But if you know it and you see it, then it's gonna be like it's gonna be as bad as like Ponda, Baba, and Dr. Everson in Rogue One. Just like that really bad, like, I'm gonna take me out of the movie now for that. That's stupid. But yeah.
I didn't even realize, number one, that she was the one in that meme, and I've seen that meme more times in my life than I would like to admit.
Right.
So what a weird, but that's so like David Gordon Green doing stuff like that, like that's so part of the course of him doing that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not shocked.
It goes to the part of the course of what I said in the beginning of this episode is that I feel like this entire group of people, these creators, were just kind of being too smart for their own good throughout the whole trilogy. It's like that had to make me feel that way. And it's not, I'm not trying to slight them. I think they are good at what they do. I think David Gordon Green is a talented filmmaker. I think, Dan McBride is a talented actor and writer and everything else. They did do an overall good job, but even the smartest and best people can sometimes just have that "I'm going to be too clever" moment, and I think it was not helpful in this movie.
That's not the only thing, and I don't really want to harp on it too much, but like they definitely have this idea that Allison was dating a cop at one point, and his whole reason for being there, which is like it's a political commentary in the middle of the movie, which feels like almost so heavy-handed to the point that they just have him offed by Michael because the dude's a creep and he's like just not a good guy, which is totally fair and fine, and I'm glad they're doing it, but at the same time it seems weird in the movie because it feels like it's just there to be the catalyst for Michael murdering people again.
Yeah.
When Corey leads this ex-cop guy to Michael to kill him. Right. Also, I do have to say, I really like the Corey character, but there's no world to me where Michael just killed a cop and is starting to get his powers back that Corey of all people manages to then manhandle him, get the mask off of him, and then runs off.
Yeah. I think it might have been viewer now who actually pointed this out though too. Maybe that actually lends credence to a theory I'd heard at one point that Michael wanted that to happen because he doesn't go all nuts when Corey gets the mask. He kind of just sits up, so he kind of wants that to happen because he's trying to like push him to become the new Michael or whatever. And that lends credence to the part that I hated upon walking out of the theater and still not a big fan of, that when Michael follows him to Laurie's house. We're going to talk about it, but he's the one that actually kills Corey, and we'll get there. I don't think we should talk about that quite yet.
Talk about it now.
All right, now.
We're here.
All right, we're here. So after everything goes down, and like Corey goes to this whole thing, you see it in the trailers. Everybody kind of knew something was up from the get-go because Corey obviously has all his fingers. So when they see in the trailer that Michael has his fingers, they're kind of like, well, what's that all about? Did they just forget that Michael got his fingers shot off in 2018? Or is it a copycat? It ended up being a copycat, just like he thought. Corey has the mask. He goes and he kills everybody, by the way. He kills like a whole goes to the whole laundry list of everybody who's wronged him basically throughout the movie. The 4 kids especially, which was my favorite death. If we're going to talk about favorite deaths, the blowtorch death was pretty gnarly. I did like that one.
That was one of the best and it's funny because it's a callback to when we first see him after the murder, and he's working on cars again. Talk about the Christine of it all. He's working on cars and things as his job. And what's interesting to this confrontation is that Laurie confronts him one time before this. Corey and Laurie needed more scenes together.
I agree. And let me ask you a question. Actually, I know we're sorry, guys. If you're new to the podcast, we go on very tangents very quickly. Hopefully, you guys are following with us. Just stay on board. We'll get there. We'll stay on track. We'll get there. The scene that does take place in Jeremy's house when Corey sleeps over and wakes up and Laurie's there in the chair. I have this vague notion, like, did that actually happen, or was that part of Corey's imagination?
No, it definitely really happened.
Okay, because like I wasn't sure, because Laurie all of a sudden when she disappeared so like it was almost like he looked and she was gone. And like, I'm sorry, but Laurie is like, whatever, how old is she now? Probably 60, 65. I don't think she's moving gracefully enough.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way.
She slips out of the house?
It could have been in his mind. I could see a world where he had dreamed it, but the truth of the matter is that he also knew that Laurie was, maybe he did, because Laurie...
Because I remember when Laurie had the conversation with Allison later, she brings up going to his mom's.
Yeah.
And she doesn't talk about confronting him in the house, but she talks about like, I mean, she did have that moment where she saw them at the radio tower. So obviously she's like kind of following and stuff. but she doesn't make mention of that specifically. So it kind of felt weird to me. I was like, is this actually really happening or not? I don't really fully know. It's one of those vaguenesses things for me.
No, I actually, now I'm thinking about it, because I actually definitely hadn't considered the idea that maybe it was a figment of his imagination. And
There you
now I'm
go.
kind of buying it. And again, this is part of the problem.
Right.
There's a real version of psychosis where I imagine that he definitely believes that he talked to Lori.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think he believes it. Yeah.
But at the same time, why?
Can she do the Batman exit like that? I'd have a hard time believing that. Maybe the movie's going to say she did, and you just kind of got to buy it. But it felt weird to me to have it like that because the door didn't open. Did she go? I mean, I saw an open window. Is 65-year-old or 60 whatever year old Lori going out the window at that point, and he's not noticing or seeing it or hearing it? Just seems weird.
Yeah,
because he seems surprised she's gone. You know, they look back and all of a sudden, like it's just the chair there, and it's like. By the way, they cut a line from the trailer in that. I don't know if you
I
know
noticed
that.
that too.
Yeah. What are you gonna do when Michael comes back? And he's coming back.
I
So
Now I'm just sitting here thinking about it now, because now I'm kind of fascinated, where I'm like, wait, maybe it was. But that just goes to show that there's a little too much up in the air that is
right,
supposed to be left up for interpretation.
it's too much left up in the air.
And
Because
that scene is so good, because I actually think Jamie Lee Curtis is excellent in that scene.
agreed.
And
One of my
I
favorite parts of the
really like,
performance.
yeah, it's one of the best parts about it, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. Let us know, by the way, in the comments there. Let us know what you think. Was it real? Was it fake? Was it a dream sequence? I don't know. David Gordon Green, if you're watching, which I doubt you are, if you're watching, let us know.
yeah. Now I'm curious, because that's interesting. Now I hadn't thought about that, but I like the scene. But
Yeah, I do. I love the
anyway,
scene.
so this whole scene in particular that we're talking about sets up this dynamic that essentially Lori is no longer trusting Corey, because she sees the evil in him is starting to manifest, and she's trying to walk him back. That's
Right.
the thing that I like in that scene too, is she's trying to walk him back, which is makes me lean on maybe it's not a figment of his imagination, because it feels like Lori in that time would be that way, because the way he sees Lori in the way he talks to Allison is that Lori is holding her back. But in that scene, Lori is pushing forward and being like, you can be okay. Evil doesn't have to overcome you.
But at the same time, I said this is the reason why I was wondering if it's real because she changes in that scene abruptly at one point because there's this moment where she's like, "Let me help you. I can help you. You can get help. Let me help you." But then like, stay the fuck away from Lori or stay the fuck away from Allison.
Right.
And it's a job of help. Like, are you helping him or are you trying to keep him away from everybody? Like, is there room? Because the way she flips is like it almost felt like it was a dream trying to fight with itself in a way. Like almost like Corey is like, there's the good side of Lori who helped me out against the rich kids. Maybe she's gonna that's the good part of Corey coming out saying the rich kids, maybe she'll help me with this. There's that evil side saying seeing her as the enemy who's gonna prevent her from and Allison from getting together. I don't know.
I don't know. So all this leads to the thing that we were about to talk about. Now you can talk about the fact that Corey breaks into the house.
So Corey goes off, kills a lot of people, and we'll get maybe some other things at one point. We should actually real quick. The doctor's scene is pretty cool too, though. Having him kill the doctor and having Michael come out and kill Deb was also a phenomenal kill. By the way, probably one of the best kills that he's done because it was a throwback, obviously, to the many times where Michael has stabbed somebody and up against the wall and just done the hill tilt.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that throwback. They could do that a million times in every movie. They could do that in every movie.
I'm always okay with that one. That one's always
great.
great.
But it was great seeing Michael get his strength back even more. Like, because watching Corey watch him was kind of cool to see. But it could have been worked as a figment of imagination too. Corey could have done that and like thought he was seeing Michael do it, but that's another story. But yeah, so we get that. He kills everybody he wants to kill, including fucking Willie and his stepfather gets killed too. Which, by the way, was a choice.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like him killing the stepfather would have shown that he was evil all along in a way. And it would have been a commitment that would have been good. I think it would have been a good commitment because it was kind of like, oh God, I'm blanking on his name and I love the guy, Machete. The actor, I can't believe I forget his name. you know, the guy who plays Machete, who was in Halloween.
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo. Thank you. I don't know why I can't think of Danny Trejo. It's kind of like Danny Trejo in Zombies Halloween.
Right.
He was always good to Michael, and then Michael killed him.
Right.
Even though he was so good to him. The stepfather was kind of like that character. Got on the motorcycle, was trying to help him out, gave him a place to work. And if Corey had killed him, it would have been a great sign that, okay, Corey is evil, definitively. Not just killing people who deserve it, but he's also killing people who don't deserve it. And it would have been a great step for them to make with the character, I think. So him getting shot by the rich kid accidentally, I didn't like that. I thought there was a missed opportunity. But all that said and done, he gets to Laurie's house. And like we said, he opens the door. Laurie calls it a suicide. And the cops take a fucking long time to get there. I got to tell you that much. I don't know how that is. And again, a small town like that. I mean, I work as a dispatcher. People know that. If we have a suicide call, then people are going to get there in like 5 minutes max. But that's another story, I guess.
Well, considering that the head sheriff is not in this movie at all, by the way.
Until the very end.
As
that one moment. He might have it might be the best thing for him. He gets hired back to come back and do one line, and it's a fucking great line, by the way.
Yeah,
he gets to come out. The guy goes, "This is how we do. It's not how this works. It is tonight."
Yep,
badass. But I mean, Jesus, he came back for that. Either way, so Corey gets in there, and Laurie obviously shoots herself, pretending to shoot herself, and shoots a pumpkin. He opens the door, and there's Laurie, just a trailer shot. It's like awesome, and Laurie goes through Corey like there's no tomorrow. She takes him out, shoots him, all done pretty much, which was kind of weird. It's kind of like if they were building up to I know they're building up to a Michael Laurie confrontation, but I felt like Corey should have been a little longer first, but that's just me.
Well, and to your point, right? Because I actually agree with this. And what's so funny is that there's two states of mind for me here.
Right.
This trilogy could have been, had this been the first movie and they decided to off Michael, then the final confrontation is Corey versus Laurie. And that's interesting. And now you're setting up Corey as the big bad for the rest of the movies.
Right.
Because then he has killed Michael to get to this point.
Right.
Evil overcomes evil.
Right.
Or, for whatever reason, I totally lost my train of thought here. But the other is that we get to this point and they do what they do, but you do it in the first movie so that Michael is now set up to be the big bad again. Basically.
That's what they should have done. And that's exactly my point, because we're getting there. So Laurie shoots him and he goes over the edge and everything else. And Laurie has this confrontation with him and basically calls him pathetic and everything else. And it's this thing. But then I don't understand even what happens here. They start talking about Allison and everything else. And he says, well, if I can't have Allison, no one will. And then first of all, if he's super evil now, at this point, he's supposed to be super evil and super strong. He's gotten strength from being Michaelized or whatever. But then she takes him out so easily, and then he kills him and he stabs his own neck. I don't even understand what the motive is from Jeremy there, from Corey there. What is he doing? Is he knows Allison's coming in, so he's going to get his revenge on Laurie by making it look like Laurie killed him.
Because then that way no one else could have her, because Corey's a fucking psychopath.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because that doesn't stop her. Because if he's dead, then Allison can still go on and have somebody else. So it just
but he's not weird. He's not thinking straight. He's
I guess
psycho. That's one of those I can almost just let it go, because it's
I probably should.
It's not smart thinking. And I'll say this too. I saw talk about that this movie is somehow sympathetic to school shooters and trying to make excuses for people that are school shooters and things like that in society. I don't really see this movie that way.
I don't go on it. I think it makes a commentary on it a little bit, but I never saw that it was something that it was condoning this or I never saw Corey as a sympathetic character after the fact. I saw him. You feel sorry for some of the things that happened to him, but once he kills, you don't ever feel sorry for him.
And that was what I was going to say, is that I think that ultimately the point is that anyone can feel like they're, or look like they're supposed to be the nice guy and feel like they're supposed to be the one that you side with until they don't. And this movie does not paint Corey in a very good light. No. Society, society shunned him and stuff, but ultimately that's not the thing that made him snap. The thing that made him snap that he was just always inherently evil. And
even in the opening scene, how he reacts in the closet and stuff, and how he screams out, "I'm going to kill you," he's showing that he is already evil.
Right. And so it's not society that pushes him to that point. It's actually Michael who pushes him fully to that point by overtaking him. But like, he goes into that one with the knife.
Yeah.
He's ready to cut them up. Like, he is not a sympathetic character. He's not supposed to be. Again, would have been great if this had been the first movie and you were setting him up that way, because then you're like, oh my God, look, we're watching a murderer be born.
Right.
Like, that was what Zombie was doing with Halloween when he did 2007. His whole thing was setting up Michael, and we watch him not be a sympathetic character.
Right. They tease it.
Easy watch.
They tease it a little bit. Like he does get bullied. He does live in a shitty family in 2007. But they also showcase that he's killing animals and he's doing other stuff that are there that makes it so he's not sympathetic. Like I felt the same with Corey. It's just not quite as overt as that. Like you don't see the actual overt like this is a killer kid. It's just he has those things those tics that make it happen for him. And then he gets bullied. He gets bullied also, sure. But like I never saw it as a sympathetic thing.
I didn't either. And so I just wanted it, like, not even close, in fact.
That's why when he goes off on Allison a little bit, he apologizes for it, but he snaps at Allison at one point, too. I think that was specifically done in there to show that he's not a sympathetic guy. Like, he's not a good dude. This is not a good dude. So,
no. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, he's not the kind of character I'd ever rally around. No. Like, it's not. It's just not.
No.
And it's so funny because in a world where shows like Ted Lasso have taken popular characters and found a way to like flip that, and you had a character who was likable and sympathetic, and then you flip them. That's why I know that this movie was not trying to do that, because we have done that very recently in a fan favorite TV show with a fan favorite character. That is not what they were doing here. And I don't think that there's any like weird thing about society created this character. No, he was just fucked up.
100%. I totally agree with you on that. So I'm leaning into it now. What we did is he stabbed himself. Allison comes in. It looks like Laurie killed him because she's got the knife in her hand and she gets flipped out, pissed off, and leaves, which is kind of funny because that shows you where Allison is at this point. Her response to Laurie's seeing her grandmother having killed her boyfriend is not to like go to the police, is not to like, I'm just gonna leave. That's what I'm doing, is leaving. So then Laurie drops the knife. She looks like she's like almost thinking about suicide again at that point. And that's when, of course, Michael walks in. Now we saw Michael outside at one point, so Michael was already there. We knew he was outside because they actually showed that one part where he was looking up. He saw Laurie going in the house. So this is the weird part where roundabout, like probably like a half an hour ago, we're getting here. But Michael comes in to the house. The mask is aside because Laurie ripped off the mask from Corey after he shot him and threw the mask aside. Michael picks up the mask, puts it on, goes to pick up the knife that Laurie had dropped, and Corey decides to grab the knife or try to grab Michael's hand or whatever, rather. Or either way, all of a sudden, Corey is trying to stop Michael. I didn't really get why Corey even did that, to be honest with you, because I feel like, why is Corey all of a sudden becoming the good guy in a way or something? Not that he was trying to be a good guy. Were they trying to make him out to be like somebody who all of a sudden was good again? I didn't get it. Like, Michael took the mask and he's back. There's no reason why Corey would stop Michael at this point. He just like, whatever, do what you're going to do, I would think. But no, Corey's all of a sudden trying to stop Michael. And then Michael kills Corey, which, I mean, I guess I was really pissed off when I first saw that scene. So, like, you spent the whole film building up this Corey character, the whole third film, I should say, the whole finale of the franchise, you're building up this character to have a basically quick death by Michael at the end in order to have the epilogue tacked on actual finale of the saga that is like 5 or 10 minutes long. Yep. I don't get what this is story. I mean, I guess when I watched the second time, like, okay, I guess because he's pissed because Corey did take the mask from him and beat him up a little bit, that's enough for Michael to want to kill him. But at the same time, that kind of throws the whole apprentice angle out the window to a way. I don't know. The whole
Which
thing
is
just
once
so annoys
again
me.
why, had this been the first film, it would be totally fine, because then the emergence of the real evil and Michael taking back his throne, if you will, right,
Yes, right.
is
He's
great.
finally ready to come back.
Right.
Corey's whole purpose in this franchise, in this series, would have been he's the kid who awoke Michael Myers from his slumber. 40 years later, Michael had gotten away. Michael is out there somewhere. Corey stumbles upon him, and through this rigmarole of stuff, awakens the evil lion, so to speak, in Michael. And now Michael's ready to take his throne back, take his mask back, and let's get shit done. And that's what starts the series out. That's what starts the franchise out. Instead, we get weakened Michael, who's also still weakened again. Like he kills Corey and he goes after Laurie, but he doesn't feel like the same Michael at this point. Still, he still feels like kind of
Because he's
old
still
and weakened, right? And but like he spent the whole movie getting stronger. He killed the cop, he killed Deb, and he kills Corey. So it should be like built up, but he still felt like at that point.
And that's the problem, right? Is that once we get to it, it just doesn't really feel earned.
Right.
It's just kind of there. And maybe that's the point, is that like the problem is this is the movie they sold.
Yeah.
And the problem is, though, is that if their whole thing is that they're trying to be like, look, things in life aren't always like grand finales or whatever. If it's supposed to be like a weird meta commentary, it's a weird fucking choice to make it now.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you've just undersold the rest of your movie.
And the rest of the movie plays out like it's supposed to be a grand finale. Like that whole sequence when Michael starts finally attacking Laurie in the kitchen, the whole thing, we saw a little bit of it in the trailer. And the fucking over the top processional afterwards, and the way we end Michael by, spoiler alert, hopefully you've seen this by now if you're watching this, because this is a deep dive thing, throwing him, going all over the top and throwing him in the grinder from the work, from Corey's shop or whatever. Like, that's all set up to be a grand finale ending. So are you going for that? Or are you not going for that?
And I got to be honest, again, and this is the problem why it feels so backwards. 2018's Halloween has such an epic conclusion for these two characters. It's such a big battle. It's such a great fight. It feels tooth and nail. It feels strong. It feels earned. And it feels like the thing that I would have anticipated, right? For this movie.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the frustration in watching this, is that it's like a totally fine fight, but it's quick, it's fast. Michael doesn't have any strength, which again is the point. Like the whole point is he's weakened comparative to when we saw him last. Well, then it also doesn't feel that earned from Laurie's point of view. Like,
I mean, I guess
so she only won because he was weak.
I mean, I guess that's what they're trying to sell, is that weakened Michael is the only, because if Michael wasn't weakened, then 65-year-old Laurie isn't going to be able to go one-on-one with Michael anymore at this point. She got away with it in 2018 because she had the trap house and because she had Karen and Allison there. To go one-on-one, they had to have a weakened Michael, which I kind of get the idea behind, but it does come off as a little shitty. Although I will say, it almost had me at one point. I know, like, the fight happens, and when she gets him and stabs him down, holds the fridge on him, and then they have that like sequence where they have the flashbacks of everything that's come so far between these two characters. I did actually, probably my one big fist bump of the whole movie. I was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. Even though it wasn't earned, I was like, that's a great way to do it. Like, we've been building and building and building. We're going to have this final confrontation, and they're going back for it. We see all what happened before. Yes, we're going to have it. Yes. And then when he grabs her throat and she's like, do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, fuck, they're going to do it, aren't they? Because I got to say it, I don't care. I love Laurie. I love her as a final girl. And we harped on Resurrection for killing off Laurie or whatever.
It was how they did it.
More how they did it. I feel like this would have been a better conclusion if Michael and Laurie had killed each other. They would have been like, Michael dead in the thing. Laurie, a 65-year-old Laurie, who's already finished her memoirs, it feels like, collapses on top of him because he chokes her out. And that's the end, when you have Allison come in and Hawkins come in and they're both dead. That ends the movie in a very powerful way, not triumphant necessarily, but a powerful way that says this is over. Instead, we get Allison coming in and saving Lori, which actually seems to undercut the flashback thing that just happened. And then we get the whole processional thing, and we'll talk about the procession in a minute. But then we come back after that's over. We have this really weird epilogue where Allison goes off driving off out of Haddonfield, which is fine, I guess. But it would have worked a lot better if Lori is dead and she's leaving Haddonfield. She's leaving it all behind. That's perfect. Now it feels like she's just leaving Lori behind, and it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of okay. I get it. And then we get, of course, the romance angle goes back again because they need some kind of way to have a happy ending. And it just felt a little weak.
And that's, again, because everything feels kind of all over the place as far as this stuff is concerned, right? Like, I really want to love so many of the ideas. The problem is that it doesn't feel earned. And I can, again, look at this as like taking parts of the trilogy, rearranging it, and then it's a really strong trilogy, a really strong finale. And Allison leaving is actually kind of built into the original finale, which was Lori turning on her and basically telling her to get out of Haddonfield.
Right.
Well, she got evil. Okay, it's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like,
I love it.
It's so strange, but at the same time, it still works for me. That's the funny thing, is like, I still really like all of it. It just feels weird as a finale because there's so much of it that doesn't feel like the finale.
Yeah. Especially because we got to see the mask at the end. Like, that's their little callback. And I know it's just a way to show it's over because Michael's mask is no longer, is like not with Michael anymore. But it just feels like by showing that and going off, it feels like, oh, because somebody else can get that mask. And I guess that's what they're trying to say, because evil can take different shape. But it does undercut a finale of a sort.
Which then
like, if you'd seen her take the mask and burn it,
or
something, that would have been okay. I get that.
Which then also makes you question: does it all come back to the mask again?
Right.
That was the thing that first movie kind of pointed to in some capacity in the opening,
which is a nod to the zombie verse as well, obviously,
and also Halloween 3,
and also Halloween 3 as well, of course. Yes, during capacity, but yeah.
I'll say this: all that being equal, the whole finale of this movie, which is like the procession funeral thing where they go and take Michael's body, is great.
It is great. It is. I gotta say, it's so fucking over the top and like almost unbelievable, but you're okay with it. You go with it because it's in this universe that's already a little over the top anyway. But it is exactly what it should have for a finale. You get to see Julian come back briefly. His characters watching through. Oh, there's another one. The weird one. The person that Michael stabbed in the neck with the fluorescent light, who has a scene actually early on. I remember seeing her going, "Wait, she fucking lived? How did that happen?"
Weirder things apparently have happened in this universe.
That's true. It definitely threw me for a loop. I'm like, oh God, she's still alive. Okay, but they have the processional, and the police are all in on it, and they get her up there, and they throw them in the grinder. And God, that's a gnarly way to end. They actually show the body, everything going. I guess there was a cut at one point. I heard a rumor that blood splatter was supposed to hit the camera, but people thought it was too funny, so they took it out or whatever. I do have to say, there was a brief second in my mind where I thought that Lori, or that they were going to throw Michael in and he wasn't quite dead, and Michael was going to grab Lori's leg and pull her in with him.
I'd have been so mad.
I had this brief thought, like, oh boy.
Yeah, I would have been furious. I'm glad that did not happen.
Yeah. I do wish that Lori had died, though. I do. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I like Lori. I love Lori, but
because we already did that. We've done it twice.
Right. But this would have been a very triumphant way to do it, though.
Yeah, but we've done it twice. I'm really glad that a version of Lori lived to see another day.
See, PJ is positive, everybody. He has a positive person.
Lori's been through some shit, man. Every version of Lori in the multiverse has been through some stuff. I'm glad that this version of Lori got to live to see another day. And like, she's going to go to Japan with the cherry blossoms and Will Patton and have all the sex and enjoy herself. And she's going to be happy.
PJ's already written fan fiction, I guess, at this point. Okay, that's fine.
That was
That's
what
fine.
that whole movie was. Will Patton falling around talking about cherry blossoms and
I
then
know, I
saying
know.
that he wants to take her to Japan. So man, make that movie. I'll watch that movie.
Wow. Okay, so PJ wants to watch Elder Sex. That's
No,
the take. That's the
we'll
takeaway
take
here.
the sex part out of it. I don't care about that. But I'm
Well,
just
that's
saying,
what you
you want a
said. You
Will
just said.
Patton, Jamie Lee Curtis, Japan set adventure where they're just like going around Japan eating delicious Japanese food, and you know what? I'd watch that. It's like an elder rom-com.
In the Halloween universe. That's
Yeah.
quite an undertaking. Okay, fair. Okay.
Look, man, this movie took a swing. Why not?
There you go. I will say it was kind of a nice callback to end with "Don't Fear the Reaper."
Oh, wait. So you're not on board with the Halloween Japan spinoff? You like just disregarded that like it was no big deal.
I'll let you watch that. You can tell me how it is.
It's got Will Patton in it. What are you talking
yeah,
about?
that is true. It does have Will Patton, and it does have Jamie Lee Curtis. I do love both of them.
Yeah, exactly. Toss Dan Aykroyd in there. We got a Trading Places reunion too.
All right, I'm sold.
There we go. See,
I'll watch it then.
Win you over.
You can always win me over. That's true. I did like the ending with the "Don't Fear the Reaper" callback, obviously, which was nice since it was played on Annie's car radio during the first one or whatever. So I like that callback. But that's where we are. We end when the saga is over for now.
And the franchise kind of
franchise is over.
Because I'm not going to lie to you. The finale feels almost self-serving to the point of like lay the franchise to rest. Like David Gordon Green was like, "This is over. I put him in a compactor. There's no coming back. Leave it alone." Like, and at the same time, though, he's in his interviews, he's been like, "I can't wait to see what's next and what people do with it," because he opened the door to at least exploring the idea that evil can take other forms, and I think that's interesting.
I agree too. The sad thing about it is, if they're not going to go that route, obviously Jamie Lee Curtis said this is her last one. I mean, granted, she said that before too, but I do take her at her word that she's done because of her age at this point. Where do you go from here, and do you create a fucking fifth timeline at that point?
I think you almost have to, because I don't know if there's a real way to follow up ends.
There isn't. So the only way you could do it is you go back to one of the older timelines. You could follow up on Rob Zombie's, which is not going to happen. The outside chance
to 4, 5, and 6.
That's what I'm saying. If we can get the Danielle Harris of it all, maybe Paul Rudd of it all, maybe go that way. Maybe even throw Josh Hartnett in that universe. Maybe somehow it could make something happen. Maybe combine those two timelines somehow to make it work. Maybe, but I think we're going to have a new timeline again. And I shouldn't be sounding fatigued with it because once they announce a Halloween movie, I'm going to be there opening day and get excited about it. I'm obviously not going to lie there. But I don't know how they're going to do it. Don't know. But it's not for me to find out, I guess.
I'm just really curious as to like what comes next from it. Yeah. Because like you're saying, I just don't know a world where do you go? Like, do we start completely over? Because if you're starting completely over, we've already done that.
Yeah.
And this might be the one place where this might be the one franchise rather where I feel bad for whoever comes into it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know exactly how you pitch it. I don't know what you do. As far as I'm aware, Blumhouse is now out. Like, their contract was for 3 movies and they've made those 3 movies. Now, granted, they could re-up them, assuming that Akkad wants to do that or Miramax wants to do that. But there's also the world where maybe they try it somewhere else with someone else. I just don't know what that world is right now.
Yeah, I don't know either. All I do know is that I do appreciate Malik Akkad, and I do know that he is willing to let creators take a swing in his universe, which I actually am very appreciative of.
Look at the last 5 movies.
Yeah. Not a lot of studio interference in these 3, at least, as far as him goes, as far as Malik going. Zombies obviously had studio interference, but that's from people we're not going to talk about. So in the right hands with Malik aside, I think you could get a creator who wants to try something different. Maybe this is the time to bring in like a Mike Flanagan or a James Wan and see what they can do if they want to. Of course, I get
or
that.
Any, like whoever. If there's any younger kind of filmmakers out there, like guy's name is escaping me, but he's the guy who did The Night House with Rebecca Hall.
Oh,
just did Hellraiser.
Yes, which I actually haven't seen yet, but I've
I have
actually heard
not yet
some
either,
good
but I've
things.
heard it is great.
I've heard it's great too. What is that guy's name? It is David Bruckner. Yes,
Yeah,
David
David
Bruckner.
Bruckner, he like guys like him. There's a lot of these up and comers. The director of a movie that just came out on Shutter called Deadstream that was really good. It had kind of Evil Dead vibes. That was super fun. I think he could do something interesting with it. It actually kind of has Halloween Resurrection vibes too because it's set in a haunted house, but it's all like GoPro cam thing.
Bring back Buster Rhymes.
Bing. There we go. There's the sequel. We're finally getting the sequel with Buster Rhymes that he
Oh,
wanted so badly.
yeah, there was talks for a while that we're gonna
That's what I
get a sequel
mean.
with him. So yeah, I don't either way. I don't know, but yeah,
I
there's a
know.
lot of
I
places this
know.
could go.
There's so many different ways it can go. I'll be curious. I'll be the first in line, probably next to you, just hanging out, waiting for it to happen. But I'll say this: all things being equal, I know it sounds like we've been super hard on the movies and the trilogy as a whole, but I actually really quite like this movie in some capacity. I definitely have problems with it, but I've softened on it a lot as I've thought about it because I like the big swings. I like the ideas. I like Corey as a character. I think that there's a lot of good in it, which is really interesting. And I think Jamie Lee Curtis is great. Like, we really didn't talk a ton about the Laurie of it
That's
all. Like,
true. Yeah,
I don't love the happy homemaker version of Laurie, but I love Jamie Lee Curtis because I
right.
think she's having the time of her life in the role. And that's really, really awesome. And it's
Yeah.
actually like fun to watch. And you can tell she's having fun. And
Mhm.
that was actually a nice change of pace because we hadn't seen Laurie like that. Which is why, again, I really wish it had been the first movie and not the last one because it's too left field for the last movie. But
Right.
had it been the first one, I would have bought it because it was 40 years later.
I would have bought into it quite easily, actually. God, what should have been? It should have been, man.
What should have been, which is why I give this movie. I'm jumping ahead. You haven't even set this up yet. But
No,
I've
yeah, we're
already
not
given
gonna.
my
Go ahead.
like I've given my heartfelt monologue of it all. I give this movie a 7.5.
Wow. Okay.
Tied with 2018. However, the caveat is this is the movie that ranks higher than 2018.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about the rankings in a second. We're going to go over there because this is the end of this franchise. So we are going to go through and tell you exactly where we all fit and what our averages were and what the official Two Mediocre White Dudes on film rankings, our combined rankings are. But first, I got to give you my ranking. This has been tough. I'm not gonna lie, it's been very tough. I kind of came out when I first came out of the theater. I was near Halloween 6 area at this point. Like
I
right
know
near
you
the
were.
front web. I was like really pissed off, really upset about it. Um, I have softened quite a bit on it, especially after the second viewing. I still don't think this is a great movie, and I would give it more. I would give it more if it had done what we said it would do, but I can't score it on that. I have to score it on what I got. You know what I'm saying? I
No, I
can't
get it.
score on what ifs. So the what if at all I'd be having up there would be better than Halloween 2018 for me as well. It would be up there with kills. Hell, if it done the right way, it might have been right up there with all of them. However, I can only give this. I can only give this a 5.5.
Ooh. I think that's the biggest difference in any of our rankings.
I think it might be. I'm gonna look in a second. Because I think actually I do think a 5.5 is actually pretty generous overall. You know what? I'm gonna get a 5.
Dude, you just keep hammering it home.
I am because I keep going to my head like the what ifs. I'm turning it in. We are turning it into a good movie. We are turning it
No,
into
because I still think the movie itself is good. I think it's flawed.
but because of where they place it and what they did with it, it's not like it because where they place it and what they're trying to do with it doesn't work for me. So
That's fair.
if it was placed where it was, the film would be good and would be better. Because now I got to give it what it is. So I'm going to have to give it a 5, which I hate doing. I do hate doing it, but That's where
I
we're
think
ending
this
up.
movie is going to find its audience over time.
It
Kind
might.
of like what I was saying earlier. And I think that you and I will be a part of that. And I think there will become a time where we're both look at it and go, yeah, PJ was right.
Maybe. I will say, let's get this. Now that means, on average, the entire franchise, I give the Halloween franchise a 6.5. You give it a 6.89.
That's accurate.
So our average, the two Mediocre White Dudes average score for Halloween franchise is 6.69. Actually goes up, we're rounding it up. So 6.7. That's what the average is.
No.
No, say 6.69.
Nice.
Okay, 6.69. Nice.
Nice.
So let's read off the entire list real quick. Halloween 1, we both gave it 11 out of 11 because that's what we do on PLD projects. Never mentioned that. We always turn up to
No,
11.
we didn't, because I jumped ahead on you, and that was
That's
my
okay.
bad.
That's okay. Halloween 2, I gave a 4.5, and you gave it a 5.5. We get slaughtered for that one quite a bit, but I stand by it.
I stand by it too.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, I gave it 8. You gave it a 9.5. Return to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, I gave it a 10. You gave it an 8. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, I gave a 4. You gave it 3. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers theatrical cut, I gave it 2. You gave a 4.5. The Curse of Michael Myers, the producer's cut, I gave it a 3.5. You gave it a 5.5. Halloween H2O, I gave a 9. You gave a 9.5. Resurrection, I gave a 1.5. You gave a 1. Woof. Halloween 2007, we both gave 6s. Halloween 2, 2009, I gave it a 9. You gave it an 8.5. Halloween 2018, I gave it an 8.5. You gave it a 7.5. Halloween Kills, you gave a 9. I gave a 9.5. And then Halloween Ends, 5 from me, 7.5 from you. Now, what does that do to our, we're going to go the average now. We're going to average these squares out. We're going to have the two Mediocre White Dudes full average from best to worst. And we're going to see, I'm going to delete this. And we're going to see how this works.
This makes for great radio, by the way, guys.
I know, doesn't it? We're going to have to figure something out for this when we do this more, because it's not going to work out too well. Here we go. Top film. Or should we go bottom to top or top to bottom?
No. It's got to be bottom to top, because you never blow your load at the.
Fair enough. Last place, Halloween Resurrection, 1.25.
Fuck you, Halloween Resurrection. Feel bad about what you've done.
Next up, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, the theatrical cut, at 3.25. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, a 3.5. Halloween 6, that means we actually have Halloween 5 over Halloween 6, the theatrical cut. I know you don't like that, but it is what it is.
Hey, man, the producer's cut's above it. That's all I fucking care about.
Yes. But with a 4.5, it's Halloween 6, the producer's cut. Just above that, we got Halloween 2, 1981 at 5. Just above. Then we have Halloween 2007, the 6. Then we have Halloween Ends at 6.25. I really dragged it down there. I'm sorry.
God, you really did, you motherfucker.
Halloween 2018 at an 8. Halloween 2, 2009 at an 8.75. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, also at an 8.75. I kind of like that they're tied because they're both weirdly different swings for the fences.
Yes, absolutely.
Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, at a 9. Halloween Kills, number 3, with a 9.25.
Hell yes.
Halloween H2O, also at a 9.25.
Yes.
Which leaves us, of course, with Halloween, the original, the OG, with an 11.
You know what's funny is that the top 4 are my exact top 4 in order: Halloween, H2O, Kills, and then 4.
I believe it's actually mine. If we moved Halloween 4 up to the 2 spot, and dropped everything down. I think it might be mine as well. I think maybe. Although no, I think I have Halloween 2 Zombies cut up actually a lot higher now too. Now I think about it, but yeah, it is. But hey, I guess you have a lot of influence in this podcast, there, PJ.
It's almost like I know what I'm talking about.
Then again, I tanked Halloween Ends, so there we go.
We can't.
It's a duo. We're a dynamic duo. God damn it! Oh, that's it for us tonight, folks. I want to throw it out there. You have our Twitter handle right there at the bottom of the screen at Paul_Denuzio, at PJ_Campbell. I do want to throw out there, of course, we have a couple things on the PLD Project Network coming up. We don't know what we're doing next to Two Mediocre White Dudes on Film. It might be The Shining and Dr. Sleep. We'll talk to Danielle and see if that's the case. We are going to take a week off, at least, maybe 2, depending on how things go, as I restructure the channel and we take a little bit of a break and PJ gets back into normal life. We do have class action this week. It's going to be on special day on Thursday. Usually it's on Wednesdays. Special day on Thursday. This week we are, like I said before, doing Mike Flanagan versus James Wan. That should be a lot of fun. And then, of course, we have Crown Jewels coming out on Friday, which is my journey through Queen, doing the March of the Black Queen. But where can you find us? You can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/PLD Projects. I want to shout out a couple special patrons here: Danielle Ramirez, Brandon Buckingham, Brandy Parker, Jeff Alterman, John Lestrina, Kelly W. We thank you so much, and all of our patrons. We couldn't really do this without you. We have a great time there. We have some extra content coming your way. We're going to do some more Halloween sequels. We get some more Halloween content from us in the Patreon. We're going to do the Lost Halloween sequels we're going to talk about. We might do some more Doctor Who shows because the special is coming out. So we're going to talk about that as well, and some hangouts and things of that nature. So please come hang out with us and have a grand old time, my friend. But PJ, where can the folks find you?
You guys know where to find me: Twitter, Instagram, PJ_Campbell, Letterboxd as well. I've been using it a lot more and actually doing things. So, if you guys feel the need to follow me on Letterboxd, you should do that. You can also find me over at a new podcast over on the Flickin' Reel channel coming up soon on the, what is it? You've Never Seen It with Allison Salamoni, where I talk about the Evil Dead franchise. I had a lot of fun with that, and I somehow made her have the longest episode she's ever had of the show. I'm shocked.
Oh, I'm shocked. Let me tell you, because you barely talk. I don't know.
I'm a very quiet individual. I can't believe that anyone would let me talk nearly that long, but talked about Evil Dead. It was a ton of fun. And of course, you can find me at the PJ Campbell Network. We do lots of stuff over there. PLD comes and hangs out from time to time. We just do random games. We have fun. We talk about the news and topics. Come hang out. It's a good time. And yeah, love you guys. Thanks for bearing with us through the entire Halloween franchise. What a journey.
What a journey. We got some big ones coming up too, of course. This podcast, obviously, we lean towards horror. That's just what we tend to do because we love horror so much. It doesn't mean we're always going to do horror. We're going to do some other stuff. But we do have the other 2 big franchises of horror we do have to get through at some point. Friday the 13th, of course, and Nightmare on Elm Street. We'll go through them at some point. Not sure when, but we're going to find out soon. Danielle, get back to us. What are we doing next?
Danny, come on, get it together.
Until then, of course, always stay mediocre. Never underestimate the power of mediocrity.
Goodbye, friends.
Goodbye. PLD PJ Campbell. 2 mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are 2 mediocre white dudes on film.